Guys, this is Anatomy Physiology lesson 9.02 on the oral cavity. So when we start talking about the alimentary canal, the beginning of the alimentary canal is in the oral cavity. Now there's a lot of anatomy here that we've already gone over. So let's go over what's review. All right, so we know some of these bones. For example, here in brown, we have the mandible. And if you want to pause and color code, go ahead and do that now. All right, welcome back. So we're going to start off talking about the bones that make up the oral cavity. So around the bottom, we have the mandible. And on the top, we have, remember the bones that make up the roof of the mouth are the maxilla and the palatine bone. I think I spelled that wrong. I think hold on, I'm going to pause the video. Okay, I just wanted to double check the spelling on that for a second. I couldn't remember if it was palatine or palatine. We don't really see those in this diagram, but they're here, so they would be found in this area. Then we also learned about the muscles. We know that this is the, in pink, that looks like I'm pointing to the duct. Let's do, there we go. So in pink, I have the greater masseter. And we also, again, not pictured, so this is not pictured. In addition to the maxilla and the palatine, we know that the muscle that makes up that controls opening and closing here is the orbicularis oris. So we learned that as well. Another muscle, and this one is new, is the tongue. You all are familiar with the tongue. You know that it lets you taste different sensations. But what you may not know is that it's got little tiny projections on it. And these projections are called papillae. P-A-P-I-L-L-A-E. And on these papillae, we have taste buds. These house the taste buds that allow us to detect different flavors. If that word looks familiar, it is because in tegumentary, we talked about the fact that papillae were the rounded projections between the dermis and the epidermis. Everything else then I think is new. Let me kind of just do a once over here. Yep, I think that covers everything. The teeth are considered an accessory. So I have the teeth. Those considered to be an accessory. And there are around 31. We don't always have all of our wisdom teeth. So for example, I have 2 of the 4. Some people have 4, some people have none, but that can vary. The rest of the structures then are ones that we're going to talk about a little bit more. The primary structure that's associated with the digestive system are these structures in blue. And I tried to go with a light blue, medium blue, and dark blue because these are all salivary glands, but they have different names and they have slightly different functions. So you have a set here. We're looking at the lateral view of the, so we've got lateral of the right side. You can have the same structure on the left. So you have a pair of these, you have a pair of these, and you have a pair of these. In light blue, we have the parotid salivary gland. In dark blue, it lies beneath the mandible. So this is the submandibular salivary gland. And in the medium blue, and I don't really have a medium marker, so I'm kind of going with a teal. We have, it's below the tongue, and the Latin term for tongue is linguo. Linguo. So the middle shade of blue is the sublingual. And what's interesting about these is they don't all release the same type of saliva. So for example, the parotid has saliva that's very watery and thin, sometimes called serous. The sublingual is 5% mucus. So this one's producing a lot of mucus. So they have different types of saliva that they emit. But let's talk overall about the role of saliva. So let's just talk about saliva in general. It is made up of water, mucus, and digestive enzymes. Well, each of these has a purpose. So the purpose of the water is to moisten our food. Swallowing, if we didn't have saliva, if you've ever been really nervous and gotten a dry mouth and then tried to eat something, you know, the food, like, and when you get nervous like that, your saliva can stop. And if you try to swallow, food kind of gets stuck in your throat. You really do need your food to be moistened and be mixed with mucus in order to aid in the swallowing process, to aid in peristalsis. So the water helps moisten. The mucus helps to lubricate. So it kind of makes it slippery. The amylase, or the digestive enzyme, and the digestive enzyme that's most prevalent is called amylase. Amylase is, anytime you see ASE, that's tied to an enzyme. And an enzyme breaks down a food substance. If you remember, carbohydrates end in OSE, and one of the most common carbohydrates is amylose. So amylase breaks down amylose, which is a carb. So the job here is to break down carbs. One of the questions I like to ask on the test, and I'll just give you this one straight up, is that true or false, digestion starts in the oral cavity? And the answer is true, because we're starting to break down carbs. Now, we're not really doing much with the lipids or the proteins yet. We wait on that, but we are, the carb digestion happens like that. And if you go to your cupboard and get a soda cracker, a white soda cracker, crack off a corner and lay it on your tongue, and pay attention to the first sensation that you taste, and it will be sweet, because the amylase in your saliva is going to be breaking down the carbs in that cracker. The other thing about the salivary glands, and I'll just write them up here. So with the glands, we learned that those are stratified cuboidal. Stratified cuboidal. So that's as a review. You should also have that in your notes. As long as we're talking about tissues, you also learned that the inside of the mouth, so let's just change it for my color a little bit here. Let's go to purple. If you remember, the lining of the mouth is non-keratinized, stratified squamous. So that's fair game for the test. One of the other structures we see here in red coming out, you see this one very clearly coming out from the parotid salivary duct. These are all linked in with the sublingual, and we don't see the duct for the submandibular, but these are the salivary gland ducts, or just the salivary ducts in red. And those bring the saliva into the oral cavity. If you lift your tongue and you squirt something sour into this area between the floor of the oral cavity, so the oral cavity, this is the base of the tongue, attaches here. The duct exits. You can see it on either side of the screen structure. And we're going to learn the name of the screen structure in a second, but you can see that duct off to the left and the right of this. And if you squirt something sour there, you can actually get that duct to contract and it'll shoot a little spurt of saliva out. These are a little bit more difficult to see. These exit out by your upper molars. But the ducts carry the saliva from the gland to the cavity. That makes this an exocrine gland. So the other thing we would want to say is that in terms of glands, A, it's stratified cuboidal, and B, these are exocrine glands. All right, so back to this green structure. This is a little piece of tissue that attaches the tongue to the floor of the oral cavity, and it is called the lingual frenulum. And if you go and run into the bathroom and look in the mirror, lift your tongue, you can see your lingual frenulum very clearly. Some people, when they're born, have an over-attached lingual frenulum, and it attaches to the tongue way up here, and the tongue you can't stick your tongue out of your mouth. So what they have to do when you're a very small child is they come in and they clip this back. They'll just trim this so that your tongue can extend sufficiently. Now you have two more frenulums, and we really can't see them. So I'm going to just grab a color. Let's go with pink. The one would be here at the base of the oral cavity in between the mandible and the lip, which is called, the area is called the vestibule. And you'd have one up here in between your upper gums and your upper lip. So if you pull your lip down, you can also see these in the mirror. This is going to be the lower labial frenulum. And the one up above is going to be called the upper labial frenulum. Labial means lip. So anytime you see labia, that means a lip, basically. And you have two more frenulum that attach the lip to the gum. Okay, I think that's about it. Let me just double check. Take a look at this diagram, make sure we didn't leave anything off. All right, looks good. Let's just do a takeaway here. We went over a lot of review in terms of bones, in terms of muscles, in terms of tissue. We diagrammed, pointed to where some of these muscles and bones are. But our new structures are the salivary glands. You have 3 on each side, so you have a total of 6, 3 sets of 2. They release different types of saliva. So this one, we've got the parotid, the submandibular, the sublingual. But they all have some ratio of these: water, mucus, digestive enzymes, specifically amylase, which is starting carb breakdown. And then we have the accessory structures in the teeth and the tongue, and all of this gets held together by these frenulum. All right, that's it for video 902. In the next one, we're going to go to the stomach. Thanks for watching.